Welcome back. Well, flooding, hurricanes, and tornadoes, these examples of severe weather are causing massive amounts of damage around the country. But more importantly, they're putting human lives at risk. To make matters worse, the American Red Cross is experiencing a national blood emergency as severe weather events across the country has canceled hundreds of blood drives, hurting the blood supply across the country. Now, joining me to tell me more about it is Jayce Eustice, and he's with the American Red Cross of Illinois. Good morning, and thank you so much for coming in to join us this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, this is an emergency. How did we get here?
Yeah, so we currently at the American Red Cross, we are facing that emergency, like you said. We're trying to make over a 19,000 blood donation shortfall that we've experienced since the beginning of July. That's led to the decrease of our national blood supply by about 25%. So there's a lot of factors that has played into that. We normally do see a little dip in the summer months, but what we've seen this summer has been more than what we've tend to expect. And a lot of that has to do with some of the normal factors of people having their kids home from school, them traveling, not necessarily making blood donation in front of mind, but it has also kind of had that added impact of the severe weather that we've seen across the country, whether it be tornadoes or hurricanes or just extreme heat that have led to the cancellation and shortening of a lot of blood drives across the country.
And there's no way to really make up for it either because, if you didn't have it this day, you can't make it up for it the next day. Now, I heard blood has a shelf life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when blood the donation makes, basically the clock starts to tick right then and there. So there's where we're sitting right now. Currently, the amount of distributions that we're making to hospitals both in the area and around the country are outpacing the amount of donations that are coming in. So that's why it's important to make sure that the drives that we have pretty much every day throughout the area we're continuing to fill those beds as much as possible, because the blood has to be on the shelves in an emergency situation in order to help save lives.
And speaking of emergency situations, I saw a report where a lot of hospitals are having to put off procedures because they don't have enough blood supply.
Yeah, so that's usually the first thing to go is when you kind of talk about those more elective procedures, because hospitals and doctors have to make sure that in traumatic and emergency situations, they have that blood there for those type of situations. So sometimes you'll see if there is a surgery or procedure that they can move back, you might see that as well. But we work really hard with all of our hospital partners throughout the country. We work with over 2,600 hospital partners, and we collect over 40% of the nation's blood supply. So it's important to us to make sure that when those hospitals and doctors, they need blood, it's our job to make sure that it's there for them.
Now, where would you say blood donations this year rank compared to years in the past?
Yeah, so just what I will say is over the last 20 years, we've experienced the amount of people that donate regularly to the American Red Cross drop by about 40%. So we are seeing less and less people donate just kind of as a whole. There's a lot of factors that kind of play into that. We do see, and studies find, that over 60% of the population is actually eligible to donate blood, but only 3% of that eligible population does it on a regular basis. So we would love if there was a world where we would be in a position where, hey, maybe we're good on blood, because we know that there's a large percent of the population that can donate. But unfortunately, we just have to get the word out there that people need to make that kind of part of their schedule.
Now, for people looking to donate, what are the requirements? Yeah,
so we, as far as the requirements go, there's no part where you age out, where you get too old to donate, as long as you're feeling healthy and you kind of pass our health screening. If you're 16 years old with parental consent, or if you're 17 years old, and usually we say if you weigh about 100 to 110 pounds, it's kind of the cutoff. And then there's just kind of some screening tests just to make sure that you're healthy enough that you can handle it, things like that as far as a requirement. But more often than not, like I said, over 60% of the population, if you want to donate blood, you can come out, you can go through all that screening, and we'll get you up in a bed.
Now, some of the requirements and restrictions have loosened over the years. Can you talk about some of those where people before may not have been able to donate, but they can now?
Yeah, so with the American Red Cross, obviously we go by the FDA's rules, and as far as what they do as far as eligibility and allowing more people to donate, we're really happy to see the FDA change some of those regulations, because it has kind of allowed for a more inclusive donation process. So we welcome everybody that is now eligible to donate that maybe hasn't been in the past, that they can come out now. And if there's anybody that has any sort of questions about, hey, maybe I've taken this medication, I've had this procedure, anything like that, they can always reach out to 1-800-RED Cross and then get those eligibility questions answered for them as well.
Well, Jayce, I just want to thank you for coming in and letting us know and giving us some more information on the blood drive and blood shortage out there. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.